Ken Pye is the author of numerous local history books, including Liverpool, The Rise, Fall and Renaissance of a World-Class City, the Liverpool edition of Bloody British History, Liverpool Pubs, and his latest, Merseyside Tales, curious and amazing true stories from history, which is a fantastic 50-story collection of true tales celebrating the strange and curious secrets of Merseyside's history. Ken has also produced the Discover Liverpool series of DVD documentaries and is a regular contributor to magazines, journals, newspapers and television. He broadcasts on BBC Radio Merseyside on a weekly basis and also gives occasional local history lectures, as well as operating tours for visitors. Ken Pye joins us on this edition of Arts Alive Books to tell us more. Welcome to Arts Alive Books. Ken Pye, you're very welcome to the studio.
Good to be here, Jerry.
So, you've published quite a lot, haven't you, of local history?
I think I'm about to finish my 9th book, I think, yeah. And yet I came to writing very late. My first book wasn't published until 2008. I'm a Scouser born and bred and deeply passionate about that fact. And I just love the city. And I'd spent a lot of time seeing these odd buildings, lock up in Wavertree, and where did the liver bird come from, and wanted to find out for myself. And then decided to write it all down and share it with everybody. And my first book was Discover Liverpool, came out in 2008. And my first set of DVDs came out to accompany the book. And there was no stopping me from there.
What did you do before you...
Well, this is a hobby that has taken over my life. I actually run an organization called the Knowledge Group, and that is my full-time job. That is my profession. And I run training programs and advise senior professionals on how to be more effective leaders, more effective entrepreneurs, how to motivate their staff more effectively. I've been doing that for 20 years. And I suppose the local history thing came from that too, because a lot of people coming into the city in senior positions didn't know the context in which they were about to be working. And we are a very unusual, unique people here. And there's a way of dealing with us. We're very special, and you need to understand us to get the best out of us. And that means you need to understand where we come from. What is our history? What is our heritage?
Where do you do your research for your books?
Everywhere. I am a proprietor of the Athenaeum, and we have one of the finest private libraries in Europe. But I spend a lot of time at the Records Office in Liverpool and the Central Libraries. I used to go there regularly as a kid with a flask and a packet of sandwiches, which I could never eat in there, of course. I'd go over to St. John's Gardens and have my lunch there, because the staff there are so enthusiastic about people who are doing genuine research. But I tell you, Jerry, the best research of all is people, is going out into the communities, going out to the churches and the historic houses and the pubs and talking to the people who own them, work there, live there, use them. Because every lecture I give, every story I tell, every talk I give, at the end of it, I'm inundated by people saying, oh, my dad used to work there and he used to tell me this, or when I was a kid growing up, did you know that? And so much of that is living history. And once someone tells me a tale like that, then I'm away. I'll go off and check the facts. Because I'm very serious about the work that I do here. I never publish any story at all and claim it as being fact without having at least 2, preferably 3, authentic, credible sources. Particularly because a lot of the stuff I write about is amazing. Is really the 3,500 corpses that were dug up in Old Swan in the 1970s. What? That nobody knew about. Buffalo Bill coming to Liverpool twice back in the 19th century. The greatest freak show in Britain was on Lime Street opposite the station, Reynolds Waxworks Museum, with the great baby Jumbo, the fattest baby in the world, turn of the century. You didn't know about that, did you?
I don't think I did. Not until I saw your book.
Yeah, and so discovering all of it, and it's all true. and some of the achievements, I mean, I like writing about people like Frank Hornby, who created Meccano and Hornby 00, and certainly Lord Leverhulme and Port Sunlight. It's not just the odd and the unusual. It's the important, the significant, the things that have made Liverpool and its economy and its culture, and Merseyside, frankly, what it is today that I write about. I like, when I talk to people, getting the, well, I never knew that reaction. That's a thrill, that.
Yeah, it's a thrill for a writer, I suppose, and for an historian. So where do you see kind of Liverpool at the moment in terms of its kind of evolving history?
I think we're at an outstanding period in our history. We've come through not just a recession, but Liverpool has had 3 decades of depression, which is worse than a lot of other cities have had. We were the second city of the British Empire for 250 years. I mean, the second city after London, and it started with the new dock in 1715. We changed not just Liverpool's fortunes, but Britain's and the Empire's. We were so significant. We held that title until the late 1950s, 1960s, when the world economy changed, international maritime trade changed, containerization came in that wiped out the docks. The trouble is, Jerry, we had all our eggs in one basket. It was all maritime orientated, and after the war, we're facing the wrong direction. The East Coast was where it was all happening. We're all rebuilding war-torn Europe. Wrong place, wrong time. Do you know the highest population of Liverpool was in 1938, and it was just shy of 900,000 people? By the time you get, when I was working as a community worker in Liverpool during the 70s and 80s, our population was down to just about 400,000 people, less than half. Incredible.
Very buoyant at the moment. The last 10 years have seen a renaissance.
Talking to regional director of commercial banking for RBS last week, and he tells me it is true. Liverpool has the fastest growing economy in Britain. I mean, we started off at an incredibly low level, but that is a real achievement. And you're right, there is a buoyancy, there's an energy, there's an optimism now. You can feel it out there. You can see it in people. I mean, the Three Queens, I think, was a first focus point for this year of that optimism. And this was a confirmation that, yeah, we are back. We are back with the venues. That's why I wrote that other book, which came out just before Christmas, The Rise, Fall and Renaissance of a World-Class City, because we are a world-class city. And I wanted to tell that tale, how it all began, because Liverpool's an invented town, of course, artificially created. How we became what we were, how we lost it all, but how we are now getting it back. We're a world-class city again.
What would you say then were the distinguishing characteristic components of Liverpool when it was evolving during this golden period of 250
It's entrepreneurship.
Years?
It's willingness to take a risk. I mean, that's true of any entrepreneur. You've got to take a gamble, take a risk, trust your own judgment, be prepared to have a sense of adventure. And so many ideas, so many businesses, so many concepts began in Liverpool. We are, I believe, an optimistic people anyway. The thing about Liverpool is it's built entirely on immigration, because it's not even listed in the Doomsday Book. It was only King John that created it, and he only created it by inviting people to come to Liverpool to start again. And he only did that with a tax inducement to get them here. So people came to Liverpool out of choice, either running away from something, so wanted something better, or coming to a town that always was expanding, giving you opportunities, particularly through the Industrial Revolution. And that has embedded itself in our psyche and our culture. And we are belligerently independent, and we are survivors. I mean, after everything that's happened, we were the most heavily bombed city in Britain outside London. After everything that's been thrown at us, my goodness, we're still here. And stronger than ever, I think.
And of course, the thing about the history is there's so much of it. There's always plenty more to write about, isn't there?
There is. I was talking to one of your colleagues before we came on air, and in my Merseyside Tales book, there are 50 stories. I have enough stories for another 12 volumes, each of 50. And I haven't stopped the research. I keep finding new stuff, or people will keep telling me these things. And so I'll start going into the research. So there's more history here, I think, than pretty well anywhere else. And we love sharing it. We love telling tales. We're excited by it. I think we have one of the most thriving family ancestry movements anywhere in the country here. Everyone's researching their family history. And I think that is an indication of how important history and heritage is to us.
And as well as being a kind of city with a strong British profile, it's a kind of city with an international profile as well, isn't it? Which really kind of comes out of its maritime history.
I mean, we are a cosmopolitan city. I mean, it is a city that's been built on immigration, but you're absolutely right. Seafarers, and we are not a Royal Navy town, we're a privateer, a merchant navy town. Sailors and seafarers have come here from every country in the world. Some have stayed here, married here. And the great Scouse diaspora, we're everywhere. Again, mostly through the sea, through the shipping lines. And so all that culture has come to us, but we've exported our culture too. It's a two-way exchange, this. And I think that's why Liverpool is so important and is well known around the world, not just for the Beatles, not just for football. People know the name Liverpool. You show people in the wilds of Africa or the Far East, anywhere, a picture of the Liverpool waterfront. And it's amazing how many people go, it's Liverpool. Because they know, either because they've sailed here themselves, or their fathers, or their uncles, or their grandfathers did. We are a world-famous city.
Definitely. Well, Ken, thanks very much for joining us. And Ken will be joining us again in the second half to talk about some of his latest books. Welcome back. We've been chatting to Ken Pye, who's a local Liverpool historian. And Ken's been telling us about some of his books. This is the one I want to talk about in a few minutes, right. Liverpool Pubs. But before that, you mentioned this in the first part, Merseyside Tales, curious and amazing true stories. And you mentioned some of the ones that you encountered and researched, such as the corpses in Old Swan, was it?
That's right. Yeah.
What's the most kind of bizarre one that you think you've come across in your?
Well, I would think that was probably it.
Crazy.
And there were lots of speculations. I mean, they dug up one corpse. They were actually building laying the foundations for St Oswald's Primary School, top of the hill at Old Swan. Dug up one corpse, so everything stopped. Called in the corridor. And the rule is, of course, you find one corpse, you have to dig around to see if you can find another one, just in case. So they did, and yes, they found another one. So they had to keep digging, and they found another one. And they kept on going, some in coffins, most in coffins, but not all of them. And came with 3,500 of them, which raised lots of questions. I will not spoil the book. Read the story for yourself. But my speculation, which has not been counteracted at all by anyone, is that these are victims of the Irish potato famine who died through starvation, either on the coffin ships sailing over or of cholera or dysentery once they were here in Liverpool in great poverty. Sometimes the poverty here was worse than they'd left in Ireland, of course. And I think it's a mass burial grave site, but I'm not going to say any more about it. Read it in the book. But it's a real bizarre tale.
Any football-related anecdotes or stories?
Not particularly, and the reason for that is I'm not that into football, which I know I'm a Scouse, I'm supposed to be, but I'm not really. Although, I know, yes, perhaps I am. How football started off in the city and which of the football teams was actually the first, it was Everton, of course, and the story of John Holding, who owned the club and owned the land on which they played, which of course is the land on which Anfield now sits, the Liverpool Football Club Stadium, put the rent up for his own team. This guy was a very wealthy brewer, was a mason, leading light in the town, but he priced his own team out of being able to afford to play on his own land. So there's a boardroom row and a split. And half the players, half the board, and half the supporters went off to form their own team. And the only bit of land they could get was the Mere Green, or Mere Green it was called. And it was a rock-strewn piece of land that was no use at all. But the landowner said, you can have it, use this, providing you can clear it. So they did. The supporters of this football club, this breakaway club, cleared the rocks and the boulders and the weeds and the thistles and the thorns. That's why Everton is called the People's Club, because they wanted to call themselves Liverpool, of course, but they couldn't because Holding said, no, I've got the name Liverpool Football Club. Call yourself something else. So they called themselves Everton Football Club. Now, those sort of stories, yes. And heroes, of course, like Dixie Dean.
Of course, Dixie
Who people
Dean.
forget played for Tranmere. Tranmere Rovers, just as important as the other two in history.
I think he may have played for Sligo Rovers as well, believe it or not.
I don't know that. That's a new one on me. See, this is it. I learn all the time too.
What about this?
Yes.
As a kind of aficionado of the Liverpool pub, I'm intrigued by this. Tell us a little bit about how you...
Well, that's a labour of love too. Research was fun. But the pubs, we're losing them. We are losing the traditional pubs in our cities around Britain as tastes change. And I wanted to capture 25 of what I consider the most intriguing, significant, interesting pubs that form part of our history. But pubs that have an interesting history or where interesting characters or unusual events took place in and around them. Now, I've picked the old standards, which you cannot avoid and must include, like the Crack, ye old Crack. And that was originally, the beer garden there was a court, a residential court. We all know about the courts, poverty, umpteen families crammed into these horrific living conditions at the back of the Crack. And it's where John Lennon and Paul McCartney and Stu Sutcliffe and Cynthia Powell, much missed now, of course, died earlier this year, met and played, where any of us who grew up in Liverpool would go down and have regular drinks. Now, I can remember sitting in the Crack Friday nights, singing Route 66 and banging me Newcastle Brown bottle on the table in time with it. Philharmonic, can't miss the Philharmonic. What a lot of people don't realise is it wasn't built as a pub. It was built by Robert Kane, the great brewery owner in the turn of the 19th and early 20th centuries, as a private gentleman's club. And it's designed in the style of a Scottish baronial mansion. And what we now know as the Grand Lounge at the back, with its caryatids and plasterwork and beaten copper panels of maritime scenes, was originally the billiard room. But I've also included, excuse me, places that a lot of people don't know about. The Roscoe Head, I think, is one of the most delightful pubs in Liverpool.
The Thai collection.
That's it.
That's extraordinary.
And
pub.
It's such a welcoming place. It's tiny. The landlady there is just what I would call a real true Liverpool landlady. Runs her business with a rod of iron, but loves her customers, loves her pub, is passionate about people coming in and enjoying her hospitality.
Great beer in the Roscoe.
Very good. Yeah. Ye Hole in Ye Wall, which claims to be the oldest pub in Liverpool, which may or may not be. I talk about that in the book. But its cellar, of course, is up on the first floor, and the beer is piped down. Why? Because there's a graveyard under the pub. You can't dig out the bodies. They're all still there. Wonderful tales.
Yeah. And what about out of town? Are all the pubs concentrated?
No. I've stuck with just the heart of the city centre because, again, I wanted to reawaken people to what exists in the city that they need to rediscover if they don't know about them themselves. But I do have plans for Volume 2, where I deliberately want to talk about the out-of-town pubs because there are so many of them. And then I want to do one for the Wirral too, because the Wirral as well, history again.
You were saying that you fear maybe the pub is under pressure. I mean, I think a lot of people have been saying that over the last few years.
Yeah. I mean, there was a reason, of course, why there was a pub on every corner, and the brewers were subsidised by the government in the 19th century because it was safer to drink the beer than it was to drink the water. Drink the water, you die of dysentery, typhoid, cholera. Drink the beer, you may get legless, but at least you'll survive. The trouble was, of course, it created a whole raft of different problems. There's massive pubs, alcoholism and social breakdown and so on. But that's why there was a pub on every corner, and they had the role of being social centres. And they were community centres. That's where you got together, exchanged your news and information. You supported each other as a neighbourhood, as a community. That's all gone because that has changed now. And pubs which were destinations now, are fighting amongst each other to get people into them with different menus, exotic foods, or stripping out the historic interiors and trying to modernize them. And that's why the pubs that are in my book are gems, treasures. Yeah. And whilst they are being very well looked after and maintained by their modern owners, the brewers or the landlords or the licensees, they understand the importance of keeping the essential nature of these places, what makes them special, what makes them so unique. The Cornmarket Hotel, a Cornmarket pub, which is in actual fact two pubs knocked together. The woodwork in the lounge is the wood panelling of a cruise liner. Beautiful. And there are the Rose and Crown in Cheapside, which is opposite the Bridewell, which is now apartments. That's where the first Catholic church to be built since the emancipation of the Catholics in 1883 was discussed and designed by men from Stonyhurst College, leading lights in the Catholic community. And they sat in the Rose and Crown pub and planned what was to become St. Francis Xavier's Church in Everton and designed it. And the landlord there was very eager to point out to me that until they met there wasn't that mark in the ceiling. What mark? I said. Come and have a look, he said. And in the alcove where they allegedly met, there is now a cross in the ceiling that's appeared in the plasterwork. Now, I think it's just the rafters showing through after age. But he said, we've tried to paint over it and it won't go. And it shows that it's blessed by God, this place. Well, perhaps it is. I don't know. But it's also alleged that one of Liverpool's vampires drank in the Rose and Crown in Cheapside. Liverpool's vampires. Don't you know about those?
What did he drink, though?
Yeah. I don't know. It may have been on his nights off, so it probably was best bitter. But the Post House in Cumberland Street, you know Hitler drank there, don't you?
Well, I've heard it.
Yes, it's fascinating stuff. It's all in the book.
Well, it does. It sounds wonderful. I mean, I'd be interested when you do your Wirral one,
Yes.
As long as you can kind of keep your head and when you get over there and you've got your passport and so on. 9 books and hopefully many more to come out. It's been really fascinating talking to you. So thanks very much for coming along.
It's been a genuine pleasure, Jerry. It really has.
It's been really good. If you have any comments or suggestions for the show, please do contact us at artsalive@baytvliverpool.com, and we look forward to hearing from you. We'll see you on the next edition of Arts Alive Books. Good night.